Hi, this is E.T. If you're a young man interested in building strength drug-free in the shortest time possible, then watch this video to the end. This is Doug Hepburn during the 1950s, one of the strongest strongmen ever, the only man to rival Paul Anderson. Hepburn, a Canadian hero, was born in Vancouver, BC in 1926. He died in November of 2000 of a perforated ulcer, alcoholism, both, something else, nobody's quite sure. What is known as this, Hepburn did have a tough growing up. He was born with a club foot and crossed eyes that marred his childhood. His parents were divorced, his father an alcoholic, his stepfather, well, less than nurturing. But Doug found solace at age 15 in strength building. He first followed the Charles Atlas program of dynamic tension. Later, he went to the Vancouver YMCA and started lifting heavy barbells. Hepburn's program was simple: progressively heavier weights coupled with a high-calorie diet. Doug rose quickly to strength fame. Gold medals in Olympic lifting. In 1953, he took the gold at the World Weightlifting Championships at Stockholm. In 1954, he won the British Empire and Commonwealth Games in the Olympic lifts. He would have won Olympic gold in 1954, but he was denied membership to the Canadian team, I think for political reasons. What's amazing is that the Olympic lifts, which require precise technique, were learned by Doug on his own. In fact, he did not practice them very often. He didn't have a coach. So, as incredible as his Olympic lifting was, he would have surpassed his own accomplishments had he had supervised training. Also amazing are Hepburn's power lifts and the odd lifts. For instance, the jerk press, 500 pounds. He could squat 800. He did the strict curl using 260 pounds. He could bench press 580 pounds. He could deadlift 800 pounds. His Olympic lifts: clean and press 381, snatch lift 300, clean and jerk 383. Now, in training, he did higher than that. Bill Pearl, a strongman bodybuilder of the 1950s, participated on stage with Hepburn for a Vancouver strength exhibition. Later on, he told strength expert Marty Gallagher this, and I'm quoting Pearl: "I saw Doug do things I never saw another human being do. He could walk up and down a stepladder on his hands." Pearl went on to describe how Doug could bend coins, and during a fight, this was right after the exhibition. Hepburn, I should add here, was a heavy drinker. Doug was attacked in a bar. He grabbed the attacker so hard that his fingers tore through the man's clothing and into the skin. Doug Hepburn, for all his strength and power, maintained, and this is important, that it was created and not necessarily genetic. In other words, adversity sparked his desire, and the training fulfilled that need. Now, I should note here that Hepburn achieved success not just in this area, but in many others. He manufactured and sold gym equipment. He ran his own commercial gym. He was a nightclub singer. He has records out. And he did other things. Doug's methods of achieving his goals were simple: scheduled workouts of lifting progressively heavier weights and ingesting large amounts of calories. Both are absolutely essential for strength athletes of the pre-anabolic steroid era. Here is an example of Doug's program leading up to a weightlifting competition. And you'll notice he does not do those Olympic lifts. But he does do 4 multi-joint, what we call compound lifts, performed approximately every 3 days, using progressively heavier weight, but very few repetitions. Here's an example. On Mondays and Thursdays, he would take between 80% to 90% of what he could do for 1 repetition and do these 2 exercises, squats and bench presses. For the squats, he did 8 sets of only 2 repetitions, resting 2 minutes between each set. Then he would go over and do the bench press, 8 sets, only 2 repetitions, 2 minutes rest between the sets. Then he would rest 5 minutes, go back to the squat rack, this time using a slightly lower weight, and do 3 sets of 6 repetitions, rest 2 minutes between sets. Then he would go over to the bench and do 3 sets, again with a slightly lower weight, of 6 repetitions, 2 minutes rest between the sets. On Tuesdays and Fridays, he would follow the same routine, only for the deadlift and the seated overhead press. Now, those second high rep sets were done usually with a weight 20% lighter than what he would use doing 2 reps. For example, if you performed 8 sets of 2 to 3 repetitions with 160 pounds, then you drop down to 130 pounds for the 3 sets of 6 repetitions. Doug said in each subsequent workout that he would increase one of the 3 sets by 1 repetition and continue the pattern of increasing repetitions until you could do 3 sets of 8 repetitions. Then you increase the weight by, well, he usually used 5 or 10 pounds, but he says it doesn't matter. You find what you can do. Doug progressed very quickly with this technique. Increasing heavy weights was only 1/2 of the Hepburn secret. Nutrition was the other, in particular calories. Doug took in 10,000 per day. Here's a typical breakfast. 1 quart of whole milk. That means no fat is removed. 1 large steak. 6 boiled eggs. 5 thick pieces of buttered toast. He'd have a bowl of soup and then 2 bowls of pudding. Mid-morning, he would have 4 quarts of milk, 6 bananas, maybe oranges or peaches. For lunch, he would have fish and chips, or maybe another steak with all the trimmings. Mid-afternoon snack would be milk and fruit. For dinner, another steak, or sometimes some spaghetti. For bedtime snack, 2 large hamburgers and more milk. So that's it. Doug had no trainers, no coaches, no high-protein supplements, no pre-workout or post-workout drinks, and most important, no anabolic steroids. He did have hard work, dedication, good food, plenty of rest. Hepburn stressed many times that he was not genetically gifted. He was, however, motivated and disciplined. By 1952, Doug Hepburn was understood to be the world's strongest man. So why is not his name familiar today, as is, say, that of Paul Anderson? Well, there are several reasons why, and one of the most important being Paul Anderson, who, just a few months after Doug's 1953 world records, eclipsed Hepburn in virtually every lift except the then unknown bench press. Another factor leading to Hepburn's withering fame was his, difficult personality, no doubt a result of a troubled childhood. But Marvin Eder pound for pound the world's strongest man as far as I know, knew Doug Hepburn very well. And he said this of Doug: "He was one hell of a sweet man, a wonderful guy. The first I ever saw who did multiple presses with 300 pounds. In his last show, I believe he pressed over 400. Well, as strong as Doug Hepburn was, his reputation may rest more, as young men search out better ways to increase strength without drugs, may rest more on his simple protocol of compound weightlifting and high-caloric, protein-rich eating, and, of course, plenty of sleep. His routine remains, in my opinion, the best ever for building Herculean strength without the drugs and without expensive workout routines, protein powders, or pre-workout drinks. So if you want to get strong, you have to add weight progressively to the barbell and to your body. It's that simple. And Doug Hepburn's routine could be the best ever way to get it done, especially for the average male, as it was for Doug. This is E.T. Put your comments below. Share this video on other media. Subscribe to this channel. Like or dislike this video.